Pokemon. What are we doing here? I love Pokemon. I've been playing for as long as I can remember. I am Pokemon's #1 supporter, and so this video pains me to make. Now, before I get into this video will be mostly negative, but I don't want you to think I believe this game is a complete zero. I did have some good times, but this game could have been 10 times better, so let's just get into it. I'll start out with what this game is. So, Pokemon Legends ZA is the indirect sequel to Pokemon Legends Arceus. When I say indirect, I mean that it doesn't immediately follow Pokemon Legends Arceus, but has the same type of gameplay that Legends Arceus introduced. In this new entry, you roam around Lumio City and its nearby wild zones, catching wild Pokemon, completing quests, and uncovering secrets as you go. Unlike traditional Pokemon games, battles happen in real time. You move, dodge, and attack on the fly, while commanding your Pokemon's moves and abilities. At night, special battle zones appear where you fight other trainers to level up your rank from Z to A, the core progression loop of the game. Catch Pokemon in the wild, train your team, and use Mega Evolutions to temporarily boost power in key fights. A big return for this classic mechanic. Obviously, that is just the surface of the gameplay intricacies, but this will give you the overall feeling of the game. It still has the core Pokemon elements where you catch, battle, train, but this hybrid mix of turn-based battling and real-time battling add a unique twist that hasn't been utilized much in the past. And this entry specifically, as opposed to its predecessor Legends Arceus, focuses significantly more on the battling as opposed to catching. So much so that Legends ZA has created a brand new battle system. Instead of turn-based battling, it's a real-time battle where you send out a Pokemon and you can walk around and tell it to use moves. This system reminds me of something like Final Fantasy VI, where you have a bar fill up, and once the bar fills up, you can use that move. So, for example, when starting a battle, you can use Flamethrower, and then have to wait a few seconds for the Flamethrower to recharge to use it. Overall, I enjoyed this change and thought it was the closest we have been to feeling like you're a part of the Pokemon anime. Being able to stand and move next to your Pokemon while giving it commands is really cool and fresh. Now, I will say I think there's one fundamental problem with this change, and that is balance. Legends ZA is way too easy. I was beating entire teams with just one Pokemon. I imagine this comes from GameFreak testing out the new battle system and being hesitant to make it too challenging. And this is a kid's game, so I won't judge it too harshly for this, even though I really think Pokemon needs to add a difficulty option to their games. Now, obviously, a large percent of their audience are adults, so it would be nice to have a little bit more challenge. Overall, though, I think this new battle system is a step in the right direction for this series of games. I don't know if I wanted to replace the traditional turn-based style, but for the Legends games, this is a really nice fit. Another major new part of the gameplay loop was battle zones. They were a big part of the quest to level up from Z to A. They appeared at night and were sectioned off areas similar to the wild zones. Inside them, trainers walked around with their Pokemon and you could battle them to earn points. The interesting part was that the game wanted you to sneak up on trainers and start battles with a sneak attack. That gave you a huge advantage. You could catch them off guard and get a free hit. On the other end of the spectrum, if a trainer caught you off guard, they got a free hit, while your Pokemon was unprepared. You could also grab missions floating around the area. They had objectives that, once completed, granted bonus points. They ranged from getting a one-hit KO from a sneak attack, to using super effective electric-type moves, to landing super effective moves from stealth. This gameplay loop mostly worked. The stealth was super janky and should have had more thought put into it. There was a stealth meter that showed how much a trainer could see you, but by the time they did, it was usually too late. And there really weren't any stealth mechanics besides crouching. I mostly used stealth just for missions. It was way more fun to just run into people and start battles immediately. The stealth just didn't work. I thought that if they reworked that aspect, this mode could have been genuinely fun. Seeing so many different Pokemon at once and trying to cleverly complete the additional objectives you picked up was rewarding, and it's something I think Pokemon could continue to build on. The other part of battling that has changed fairly drastically is with Mega Evolutions. Mega Evolutions haven't been a main staple in a Pokemon game since Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and their return is a welcome one at that. This entry introduces quite a bit of new ones, and they overall have really cool designs. Not all of them hit, but for the most part, they're unique, fun, and something that was desperately needed, especially for longtime fans like myself. Mega Evolution, in my opinion, is the best mechanic that Pokemon has introduced since Double Battles, and so for their return after being so dormant for so long is really amazing. Now, I do have to talk about the elephant in the room with the fact that some Mega Evolutions are locked behind a paywall. Now, for clarity, none of these Mega Evolutions are even mentioned in the main game. They are completely set aside for DLC. Your experience isn't broken by not having them. I played the entire game without them and it didn't hurt my experience. Now, I will say this is beyond scummy that GameFreak did this, but it didn't hurt the core game, so I won't mark it down for that. Now let's get into the other main mechanic in Pokemon games, which is catching. As opposed to the battling, the catching is almost identical to Legends Arceus. Pokemon are seen as wild and dangerous animals. You as the trainer run and dodge while trying to avoid the attacks of wild Pokemon in hopes of getting a good throw and catching the attacking Pokemon. You can send out your own partner Pokemon to battle these wild Pokemon in hopes of wearing them down before catching that coveted catch. It all works really well. The exhilaration of getting that last second catch or barely getting out of a wild Pokemon's grasps is so fun and easily one of Legends ZA's strongest points. But there is one massive flaw. So in Legends Arceus, the wild zones were basically the entire map. Other than a few select areas, wild Pokemon could spawn anywhere. It was one of the best parts of the game because it gave the player the feeling they were in the world of Pokemon. Now, in Legends ZA, for whatever reason, wild Pokemon are excluded to wild zones. These are sectioned off areas that house wild Pokemon. This was a weird decision because it takes one of Legends' best mechanics and literally puts it in a box. For example, Wild Zone 3 might have Weedles, Pidgeys, and Rattatas. Then, as the game progresses, more wild zones will open with stronger Pokemon appearing in them. This mechanic did the exact opposite of what the Legends games were trying to do. Bring the player and Pokemon together. I can only imagine they did this for some technical reason, but the fact that they made it work in Legends Arceus makes me unsure. No matter what, it's a downgrade and a massive one at that. So let's get into the story. Now, I'll be honest, for Pokemon games, I don't generally expect any crazy story. Pokemon has never been known to be a story-heavy game. Of course, there have been a few exceptions, but it's not the norm for Pokemon to have a story worth remembering. And this game is not one of those exceptions. The story is about as basic as you can get. The plot revolves around a young traveler arriving in Lumiose City and getting sucked into the mystery of Pokemon turning mega and going crazy. It's not a bad story by any means, but there was never a point where I was on the edge of my seat anticipating the next chapter. The side characters are solid, they all have their own quirks. If anything, they get a bit stereotypical at times, but they were fun and didn't bore me, so that was nice. Where the story really stumbles, in my opinion, is with filler. And for context, filler is the #1 killer for me in a video game. I play video games to have fun, not to run errands, or travel to a building across town to talk to an NPC. That is what cell phones are for. This game is jam-packed with filler. There was a point where I had to battle this character, but to do that I had to find his sister. The person who knew where his sister was needed some item, and to get that item I had to do some other generic quest. It just felt unnecessary, and all I could think was that GameFreak needed more runtime, so they threw these parts into the game. This game was just riddled with content like this, and I really think that hurt the pacing. Now, with the amount that would be taken out, there wouldn't be a lot left, but maybe that means GameFreak should reevaluate their storytelling. Another aspect I really didn't enjoy was the side quests. They were so boring and generic. Honestly, it felt like GameFreak forgot about side quests until the last few months before release and asked an intern to design them. Most were just, show me this Pokemon, find me this item, or battle me with this Pokemon, packaged as minor errands GameFreak thought you should care about. One quest, for example, had you catch a Tyrantrum and bring it to a director so it could be in a movie. There's just nothing exciting about it. In my opinion, GameFreak should have significantly cut the number of side quests and made the remaining ones meaningful. There were one or two that were somewhat interesting, but overall these felt like filler meant to pad the game length. One thing I was a fan of in this game was the quality of life improvements Pokemon had been continuing with. For example, you could auto-heal from the menu with one button. If you completely whiffed and missed a Pokeball throw, there was an NPC who gave them back. Mega Evolution could be used multiple times in battle, and you could search for Pokemon in your box. Some of these have been in recent games, but the overall push toward better quality of life was more than welcome. and I was glad GameFreak was implementing these changes. The final major part I wanted to go over was the technical performance, and let me tell you, if you thought the review up to now was rough, buckle in. For context, I am playing on the Switch 2, and I shudder to think what the Switch 1 plays like. So when I review a game, I look at the context of the game to accurately judge it. For example, I'll be easier on a brand new indie game from a new studio than I would be for a AAA developer. With that said, Pokemon is maybe the most profitable single IP ever. The company is literally swimming in money. The draw distance is awful. The frame rate is choppy, especially when doing quick turns or partaking in major battles. Pop-ins are abundant, and honestly, the quality of the animations are, well, dull. This is frankly unacceptable. I don't know what it is, but Game Freak can't figure out how to make Pokemon look good on the Switch. And it's possible, because look at Donkey Kong Bonanza, or Mario Kart, or Zelda. These games look fantastic on the Switch. So what is Game Freak doing wrong? Like I said, Pokemon makes more than enough money, and Nintendo knows Pokemon sells, so what are we missing here? I think fundamentally this is the biggest problem with Legends ZA and other Pokemon as a whole right now. Look at Pokemon Scarlet and Violet when those games came out. They were terrible. And the Switch 2 upgrade it's better, but it's not where it should be. If this game had the look and feel of one of Nintendo's other flagship titles, then I think I could say I actually like this game. Even with the other issues I discussed above, this technical problem is just frankly unacceptable. So that is Pokemon Legends CA. While most of this review was pretty negative, I didn't have a completely miserable time playing it. I'm hard on Pokemon because for the amount of money it makes and how long the franchise has been going on for, a game in this state is frankly unacceptable. If you are new to Pokemon, this would definitely not be my first choice for a jumping on point, even though I think Nintendo really emphasized that this is a good starting point. I just can't tell people this is where to start. If you're a veteran and are looking for the next entry, I would tread carefully. Hopefully Nintendo and Game Freak learn from this game and can really polish the next entry, because Pokemon fans are hungry. So that's it from my review. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.